Hey everyone, Nathan Rose here. I'm the author of the book Chess Opening Names, and in this video we're starting a new series where I'm going to go through each of the chapters in my book and give some more of the history, stories, and lore that underlies the first few moves of chess. I feel like when you understand the origin of the opening names, it makes you appreciate the heritage of the game more when you're playing them. Why is the French defense called that? Where did the name dragon variation come from? And who was Ruy López, the subject of today's video? We're starting out with one of the most popular openings in chess and also one of the oldest. Let's run through the moves. It begins e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, and then bishop b5. That's the starting position of Ruy López. So who was Ruy López, and why is the series of moves named after him? Well, he was a Spanish priest who lived in the 16th century, so that's the 1500s. His exact date of birth and date of death are not reliably attainable, but the most common sources put him at circa 1530 to 1580 as being his lifespan. And being from Spain, this series of moves to Ruy López is also sometimes known as the Spanish opening. Now, the 1500s is a long time ago, and this makes the Ruy López one of the earliest openings known to chess. In fact, it first appeared in a document called the Göttingen manuscripts, which came to light in, with origin, of being around the 1490s. So that's about when America was discovered, to put that in context. But yeah, the Ruy López was not actually invented by the Ruy López. Like 1490 is a bit before Ruy López's own lifetime. So why is it that these moves came to be named after Ruy López, even though he came so much later, a few decades later? Well, he was one of the strongest players in Spain for about 20 years, but the thing that was really notable about Ruy López was the fact that he published a popular book. It has a Spanish title, but I'll give the English translation. It was called Book of the Liberal Invention and Art of the Game of Chess. And this came out in 1561. This book was partly inspired by López's reading of another, even earlier book, which was written by a Portuguese player and author named Pedro Damiano. Damiano also has an opening named after him. If we just go back, after knight f3, the Damiano defense is where black defends with f6. A horrible move, but yeah, that's what it's called. It's called the Damiano defense. Interestingly, Damiano himself didn't recommend it, but it still got named after him anyway, which is quite curious. But if we go back to the Ruy López and López's book, okay, so there were many sections in López's book. There was some material on the origins of the game, the rules which were in force in Spain at the time, some of which were different than today, actually. Interestingly, if you took all of your opponent's pieces and it was just the enemy king left, even if it wasn't checkmate, then that was enough to win the game. And also, stalemate, as in having no legal moves, would result in a win to the player not stalemated. So yeah, those are some differences to the modern game, but still, all the pieces move the same way as they do today. And there was also a section on opening play. And this is where we get to the story of why it's called the Ruy López, because in Damiano's earlier book, Damiano had recommended knight c6 on move 2, but López disagreed. He thought that the best move actually was d6, which is known now as the Philidor defense. Of course, back then, Philidor was still, a couple of hundred years away from being born. So this didn't have a name, but d6 was López's recommendation. And he thought that after knight c6, bishop b5 was the refutation to Damiano's recommendation. So, of course, today we know that that's not true. This is a perfectly fine starting position for black, and black enters into it all the time. There's plenty of play for both colours. But you have to remember, this was only a few decades after the modern rules of chess had been formulated. I mean, up until about 1475, the queen and the bishop didn't move the way that they do now. So this change in the game led to a change in opening theory, and it was players like Damiano and players like Ruy López who were trailblazing through this new game, and that we're the beneficiaries of their early work, and it built on itself over the centuries. And we shouldn't be too harsh judges, I think, of the fact that what they discovered or what they said 500 years ago maybe doesn't stand up to modern analysis. They had to come up with everything themselves. The fact that Ruy López said that this was the refutation to knight c6 was what attached his name to this chess opening from then on. So López also did quite a bit of work on the King's Gambit. If we just show the King's Gambit quickly, that's e4, e5, f4. And there's also a variation within the King's Gambit which bears López's name. So after the King's Gambit accepted, bishop c4, the López defense is c6. I don't know the King's Gambit too well, but there you have it. That's the López defense from black's perspective. Back to the Ruy López that we were looking at before. A few other fun facts about Ruy López the man. We have him to thank for introducing the word gambit into the chess vernacular. So as part of his work as a priest, he took a trip to Rome, and being a chess fan, while he was traveling, he played some of the local players in Italy, and came across the terminology there in Italy that they were calling it a gambetto. Now in Italian, gambetto means to catch or snare with the leg, sort of trip over and then make someone fall. And the idea is that by giving up material in the opening, you're setting a trap, you're setting up your opponent to fail, just as the word would suggest. So López took that word, gambetto, kind of changed it into gambit, and that's the word that we still use in modern times. Another fun fact, among his advice, he had one tip which, well, let's just say it's not very priestly, man of God, but still, you can be a sinner over the chessboard, I suppose. Well, he said that one way to improve your odds of winning is to set the board up so that your opponent is sitting such that the sun is in their eyes, which of course is distracting and a bit unsportsmanlike, I would say. But there you go. López had that among his advice. So not just the opening moves, but everything possible to gain an advantage. And finally, a story about him near the end of his career. He was involved in a match in 1574 where two of the leading Italian players actually travelled to Madrid to face López and one of his countrymen named Alfonso Cerrón. So it was López and Cerrón against the two Italians named Leonardo di Bona and Paolo Boy. And this was played in the royal court in front of King Philip II, King of Spain. And unfortunately for Spain and Spanish pride, the Italians emerged triumphant. And this is seen as a moment in chess history where the balance of power in chess shifted from the Iberian Peninsula, so Spain and Portugal, and it shifted to Italy, where it remained for some decades after that. So that's the Ruy López. Now you know why it has its name, and you know some more interesting information about Ruy López the man. If you enjoyed this snippet of chess history, then do check out the book. I'll drop a link down below so that you can find out where to get it. It's available in audiobook, paperback, and Kindle, so whatever your favorite format, you can learn more about the history of the opening names. Do also subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss out as I post more of these videos. Drop a like down below if you like the video, and also leave a comment if you have any questions or anything that you would like to see me do next. Love to hear from you. Until then, this is Nathan Rose. Bye for now.